Have you ever noticed that the older that you get, especially as a parent, things that used to feel effortless, it now seems like it just requires so much more effort. And I don't know if this has anything to do with me getting older, or if it has something to do with being a parent, but I swear these days, everything just requires more energy than it used to. And in fact, this is what I want to talk about in today's video, because this reminds me of this one time that I took this really weird side gig. So I get to the interview for this job, and the interview was surprisingly short. It was just a few seconds, and the guy in the room just points at this bike and he says to me, just keep pedaling, just pedal all day. And that was it. That's all he wanted me to do. There was no orientation, there was no employee handbook. They just said something about how me pedaling would support the electrical grid, or maybe something about supporting the city. Honestly, I wasn't really listening, because I took the job because I just needed the cash. So I get on the bike and I start pedaling. Honestly, it was actually pretty cool because it was fun. And every time I would try harder, another part of the city would light up and it would come to life. The street lights would turn on, the restaurants were more vibrant, the buildings were glowing brighter. And I remember thinking to myself, okay, this is definitely one of the weirdest jobs I've ever had, and I'm basically getting paid to ride a bike all day. After a few hours, I would obviously start to get a bit tired. I would slow down. And then almost immediately, what happened was that some of the stores would lose their power, and then entire neighborhoods. And then all of a sudden, I have everyone yelling at me to pedal faster, like I'm not pedaling for the last 6 hours. And then I realized that there was no shifts. Apparently, it was just me in that room. That's it. And then as I got exhausted, more of the streets just kept shutting off. The restaurants, the offices, people's homes. But what's interesting is that I remember there was one building that never lost power. And I think it was the hospital. And then something in my mind clicked. The city wasn't trying to keep everything running. It was protecting the things that it could not afford to lose. Therefore, the hospitals, the big hospitals, they stayed on. Everything else started shutting down. And for some reason, I just couldn't stop thinking to myself, my body does the same thing. Because when you get so busy, I still go to work, I still take care of my kids, I still make my dinner, I still pay for the bills. The essentials are running, but all the other stuff, they're quietly disappearing. The patience to sit on the floor with my kids, the motivation to work out, the energy to pick up the phone and call a friend, those desires to go for a walk, the excitement to start up a new project that you've been brushing off for the last few weeks, those lights, they start shutting off first. And it's not because you don't care about those things, and it's not because you're lazy, it's not because you're getting old. Well, maybe you're getting old. There just isn't enough energy left to power everything anymore. And this is what I call your recovery capacity. And in the simplest way to explain your recovery capacity, it's basically, and simply put, how much of your life you currently have enough energy to supply power to. And the crazy part is, most of us don't even notice we're running on emergency power. We just assume this is just how life feels because I'm a parent, because I'm getting older, or because this is just how parenting is. This is why I created what is called the stress survey, because I want to give people, parents, a chance to see all this invisible stuff, your invisible health, to see what's happening with your energy, because you cannot change if you cannot see it. And if you've ever felt like you're still getting through the day, but it feels like every day is costing you a little bit more than it used to, I think it's time for you to take this survey.